Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Pac-Man here, and once again, I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Pac-Man World Re-Pac for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally the Nintendo Switch. So, last time we have basically completed every single levels in terms of the forms of the Ruins world, and in addition to that, Jigglypuff has decided to join in for the sake of the forms of the Ruins world, and on top of all that stuff though, that she had a lot of fun with the forms of watching me playing the game. And in addition to that, we also managed to beat the likes of the forms of Anubis Rex, but thankfully it's much more tamed this time around, because unlike the original version, that the challenge is a bit all over the place on the original version. So thankfully on the remake, that is a lot more balanced. So in addition to that though, it's also pretty easy too. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on throughout the game and experiencing the third world in the game, which appears to be the space world. So to begin with, let's dive right into Space Race. So yeah, to be expected, there's going to be lots of lasers that we need to avoid. In addition to that though, we're able to experience the most amazing set piece in terms of not only for this entire world, but also the ambience of the music itself is super atmospheric. Especially because concerning about the fact that we're going to be experiencing in space. So because of this though, yeah, there's not much else to say about the forms of this world. It's just, it's a brilliant world. Especially noticeable about the fact that at least we don't have to worry about the forms of, you know, some dark areas and all that stuff. So it's just a matter of the fact that we need to avoid, you know, a lot of stuff ranging between those lasers, as I said before. In addition to that, there's also quite a few bottomless pits every now and then, but either way though, I'm sure we'll try to able to avoid those as much as we can. So, but either way though, still, you probably get the gist of it. So yeah, every once in a while that we do need to able to activate certain switches in case if we do need to progress, because otherwise, that as you can tell with that particular loop switch, that also means about the fact that if you took too long on certain parts, you need to reactivate that switch again, so just in case you can able to continue your progressioning. So anyway though, so let's just go ahead and create a bridge, so that way we can able to go across the gap. Or alternatively, since about the fact that this is a remake after all, you can now able to actually utilize the flutter jump, so just in case you can able to actually no need to worry about activate the switch, assuming of course about the fact that if your timing with your jumps is a bit on the actual, well, it's hard to explain really, because I know for a fact it's been about 2 days ago since we've last played this game, because after all, recently Sonic he's now recently finished up everything in terms of the forms of Kronos Island. Well, not every single portions of Kronos Island, but I'm sure enough he will able to actually get back into Kronos Island at some point in the future. So because of this though, yeah, a few things we want to explain for this point today, and that is that, oh wow, that's actually a nice little 8-bit pixel of the forms of that particular, I would say, inky sprite from down there. So yeah, it's a pretty nice touch. So anyway, so a few things we want to explain is that, well, today's date of course is the 8th of June today, in this case in 2023 today. Naturally speaking, and during at some form or another until today, recently about the fact that the actual gaming event has recently begun. And that's what appears to be buddy forms of Summer Game Fest. And as a result, we can pretty much expect to see about the forms of tons of announcements here and there, while hoping about the fact that they're able to actually bring some new stuff to the table, aside from the fact that, well, relatively speaking now, I'll discuss my predictions onto that though, until whenever we get to likely the continuation on Space Race, or potentially speaking the next level. So because of that though, yeah, everything else will be pretty much expected when it comes to able to mention more about it until later. So but either way though, let's just go ahead and tackle through the next maze right here, so we can pretty much guarantee we're able to, as usual, obtain more Pac dots and all that stuff. And in fact, no matter what though, one thing I should probably also mention about this as well, since you're able to actually become Super Pac-Man after all, when you're able to obtain a massive power pellet, basically you don't have to worry about getting touched by the forms of certain stage hazards. Specifically, not only with the forms of those magma rocks, as we've already seen, sensing during the forms within the second world. But also, as you can see, we can now able to actually be invincible, just try to able to avoid those lasers. So that should be all good, all things considered, especially because you don't have to necessarily try to worry about that anymore. So yeah, I felt a little bit more intrigued by that. So anyway though, so yeah, as far as what Sonic has already mentioned about this, ever since in Sonic Frontiers Let's Play so far, that basically he did mention briefly about the fact that, yeah, we're about to be getting ourselves iOS 17 at some point in the future, and to be more specifically, there's also iPad OS 17 as well, which obviously brings us some more features is about to be on the horizon. So again, we're not exactly sure when does the actual iOS 17 is going to be officially going to be in public, but I'm sure enough though it will be later down the road in this year. Well, we shall see what happens in due time, especially noticeable about the fact that we're still in June after all, so but either way though. And I think what they will try to bring when it comes to the forms of some new features for the sake of the iOS phone updates as far as this is concerned, I believe they'll bring in something related to standby mode, as well as contact posters, as well as offline maps, and especially noticeable with name drop, and also there's going to be leave a FaceTime message feature, and there's also the journal app, which I think you might as well get that app once that particular iOS 17 is going to be installed or something like that. And in addition to that, there's also going to be live stickers, as well as improved autocorrect function, and live voicemail, and also check-in, and also you have to say Siri instead of the forms of Hey Siri or something like that. So relatively speaking though, about the fact that that could be some of those quality of life improvements or somewhat. So in addition to that, there's also Find My Item sharing. And finally, perhaps is the most cutest one of them all, is that there's going to be pet albums into your photos. So pretty cool and pretty substantial at the same time, because obviously about the fact that, well, I did manage able to try to take some pictures for my cat or my two dogs essentially, but for whatever reason they have not been registered as pets photos, which as a result of that kind of stuff though, I'm very happy about the fact that that particular feature will come into play until specifically God knows when. So but either way though, yeah, that's as far as saying goes. That's what I can say about that particular point worth noting for. So anyway, so I think we're basically doing, dang it, I've lost a life. Oh well, no big deal, because at the very least we got the checkpoint from a few seconds ago, so that should be alright, I guess. So, there's also another thing I should probably explain about this as well, is that, well, potentially speaking, that, we actually got ourselves some quite a few stuff has been just happened. During the course of Nintendo's case, like to be more specifically, there was a new trailer just came up for the sake of the forms of Pikmin 4, and what makes this a bit cooler is that not only does it bring a new trailer for the sake of the forms of Pikmin 4, mind you, we still have not seen the actual entire gameplay aspect. Well, we've already seen a glimpse of the gameplay footage since in February this year, so as a result of that kind of stuff though, I'm still very excited to see how that's going to turn out. Especially noticeable that I still heard about the fact that the dungeon aspect or the caves aspect from Pikmin 2 is finally returning. So because of this though, I'm super hyped about it. But what makes things even much more cooler is that, do you guys even remember playing the Splatoon games? Specifically, Splatoon 1, 2, and 3, that you can able to actually do a lot of customization options? Well, I'm happy to report that Pikmin 4 is actually also getting customizations for your adventure. So because of that though, you can able to customize your very own avatar, which, kind of think about it, it's actually kind of similar to the forms of how it does in Sonic Forces. Although, unlike in Sonic Forces though, it's about the fact that I believe that the avatar characters does not speak, aside from, you know, just doing like a gasp or sighs or anything else like that. And exponentially speaking though, I'm very excited able to actually customize my very own captain for the sake of the forms of Pikmin 4, which as a result of that kind of stuff though, that actually gives us a lot of hype, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, you know, potentially speaking, that unlike in Pikmin 1 as well as Hey Pikmin, you can only take control of Olimar, and then in Pikmin 2 you can able to take control of the forms of Olimar the whole way through, and Louis for the sake of the forms of the first half of the game, and as far as the President is concerned is on the second half. And as a result of that kind of stuff though, it does bring some different characters to the table, whilst compared to in Pikmin 3 / Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Switch, basically you can able to take control of not only Alf, Brittany, and Jolly, but also during the multiplayer mode, so you can able to take control of not only Olimar, but also with Louis as well, but only on mission mode, as well as the forms of side missions here and there as well, or side stories for that matter on the Switch version. So yeah, that seems very cool in that respect, especially because about the fact that I believe we've only just almost got about a month left until the game finally launches at some point on next month in July, so that gives us a lot of hype. Especially noticeable about the fact that, now, originally I was trying to mention something about the forms of the gaming announcements during the course of the Summer Game Fest, but unfortunately though, I don't think that seems to be the case for today. But I really will say this right now, that we'll let Mario and Luigi were able to mention more about it, whenever they go back onto the forms of Mario Super Sluggers during that time, so. Alright, so let's move on to the next level, as you can see, called Far Out. So as a result, I have no idea why I'm speaking like that, mainly because I've been playing too much of Space Ace, as you can definitely tell from this point. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, I get the feeling about this particular point is that between both Space Ace, you know, with the arcade, you know, with that particular Disney-like game or something like that, made by Don Bluth or anything else like that, alongside with the forms of Dragon's Lair, I believe those two games combined, since we're now in 2023 after all, I believe both of those arcade games were expected to become 40 years old this year, so yeah, time flies, you know. Especially about the fact that, gee, no wonder why there are so many versions of those games every now and then, especially noticeable with the forms of certain compilation games comes into play, for almost every single systems, basically, ranging between the Nintendo Wii, and as well as the forms of the Xbox 360, I'm presuming so, and PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and possibly maybe PlayStation 5 due to the backwards compatibility with PS4 stuff here and there, and in addition to that, the Switch version, so you can able to play those games on the go, and also with the forms of mobile phone devices as well. So because of that though, yeah, it's actually quite surprised to know about the fact that those two games combined, that it will expected to become 40 this year. So even then though, I was expecting if I was trying to able to celebrate those two games combined, to able to look back on it though, well mind you, it's been a very long time since I actually have last played those two games back to back, especially it's bad enough that I no longer have those two games on my PlayStation 3 system just because of all that complicated settings and anything else to be more specific. But I will say, I will try able to actually get the Switch version so I can able to enjoy my time on the Dragon's Lair trilogy of games on the go for the Nintendo Switch. Although, the only thing I need to hopefully I'll wait for is the actual price drop. So because of that though, assuming of course with the actual game sales, price tag will come into play. So, we shall see what happens in due time. So, anyway though, oh, and another thing I should probably mention about this as well, is that recently I've managed able to complete The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX again, except this time on the original cartridge version, and I had a lot of fun with it though, especially noticeable about the fact that I'm very glad I managed able to complete the game on my own time for a bit, and what makes this even better is that thank God the save battery for your saving game, surprisingly it worked, especially noticeable about the fact that despite I have to pay for about 38 quid, which is better than nothing I suppose, especially noticeable that unlike in eBay, assuming of course if it's cartridge only or with box, jeez, the pricing on the actual two of those things is actually skyrocketing, so. But at the very least though, it's about the fact that I'm very happy to able to have you know, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX into my physical Game Boy cartridge collections for this point. So, but either way though, I'm very pleased about that. So, which I think we've already pointed out already in the past few weeks or so. So I don't feel like trying able to mention about that again. So, but I digress. Oh yeah, there's also another thing that I suppose that Sonic has also forgot to mention about this as well. Recently we've watched the films of the My Little Pony Make Your Mark Chapter 4, in some cases Bridalwood stock, and for what I've looked on it, it was pretty good so far. Especially noticeable about the fact that despite with this drought of the films of the actual hype level of any sorts, just because of all that, Netflix is pretty stingy when it comes to the films of releasing certain stuff at certain form or another. But either way though, at the very least about the fact that originally I did say in the past few weeks or so, that originally I did say about the fact that I potentially give up on G5 for the time being. But as it turns out about the fact that I'm now starting to enter it again, to able to actually give the series a second chance. Especially noticeable about the fact that at least we're able to actually find out more stuff to come. To be more specifically with certain storytelling for not only Make Your Mark series, but also with the films of Telltale as well. So, but either way, that's as far as saying goes. I think that's as far as I can talk about it. So, and maybe potentially we might be able to hear more details about the films of Chapter 5, but it feels like we're going back into that particular Netflix drought system again, which as a result, it feels kind of inconsistent at one form or another, which gee, no wonder why it actually took us so long to able to actually get into the next chapter for not only for My Little Pony Make Your Mark, but also with the films of Sonic Prime, which as a result, I believe we've only just got about a couple of weeks left now for the likes of this, you know, the release of Season 2 of Sonic Prime, which I'm also very excited about. So even then though, my hypes will be highly expectating. So either way, I have no idea why I'm speaking like this at this point in time, folks. I think the problem is though, is that I've got myself, unfortunately I've got myself my, croaky throat right now. But that's just because about the fact that, seriously, I'm just so desperately thirsty, especially noticeable about the fact that at this point in time, the weather condition is going to be super dang hot at this point. Which, don't get me wrong, I did somehow manage to enjoy my time with the films of the sunshine and all that stuff. But it's just about the fact the matter is though, I need to get a lot of hydration at this point. So, which is very understandable when it comes to the films of how the fact that we're now on summer at this point. So, but I digress. So, anyways, let's go ahead and, oh jeez, I just realized. Aha, a key. Because that's why the key was there in the first place. Because obviously we've spotted ourselves Professor Pac-Man. So because of that though, we can able to rescue him, so. But first of all, we need to dodge a lot of those lasers while simply trying to rev roll on that particular elevator platform. So just to ensure that we should be safe for the likes of those lasers. So there we go. Thanks, Pac-Man. I'll wait for you up ahead. So yeah, we meet again at some point at the Ghost Island, so. And I think that's saying goes, I think that's as far as I can say about the films of this level, basically. Although, speaking of the films of something else for that matter, in regards to the films of iPad OS, some features they'll include for the iPad OS, those are, let's just say, I'm pretty sure they'll also include live stickers in messages, and also they'll bring in flexible layouts and offline maps as well, and airdrop continues when out of range, and also say applies with the forms of the health app, and also with the forms of inline PDF, and as well as from that, leave a FaceTime message, and as well as from that, a redesigned lock screen. Okay, that seems interesting. As well as the forms of external camera on iPad, and that's as far as I can usually try to figure about in terms of the forms of iPad OS. So, because yeah, I'll tell you what though, it's about the fact that until specifically on next Tuesday, my throat will be better by then. especially noticeable about the fact that, well, potentially speaking, I just have no idea why that I've got myself my croaky throat at the moment. So, which should be expected at this point, especially noticeable if I was trying to able to do, you know, quite a lot of emphasis on commentary at one form or another, and chances are those about the fact that sometimes it didn't go too well. So, well, on the several of occasions worth noting for, but either way, man, I just really love the music in the forms of not only Far Out, but also the next level after this too, because, well, I just really love the atmosphere of the forms of the Spaceland as far as this is concerned, you know? Anyway, so the next thing I want to mention though is that apparently they're about to be able to bring us something new to the table in regards to the forms of Angry Birds series of, you know, series as far as this is concerned. That's what appears to be known as Angry Birds Mystery Island, which involves around the hatchlings on a new island to explore. So meaning about the fact that maybe some new adventures might be involved or something like that. Well, I don't know about you, because I've seemed able to lost interest with the forms of the Angry Birds stuff as much as the next guy, I must be honest here. But I get it because of the forms of the popularity or anything else like that, but I'm just saying about the fact that I'm not a huge demographic when it comes to that, so I must be biased, I guess, so. But I digress, especially noticeable that I have tried one of those games, and I'm pretty much suck at it though, so that's my kind of theory anyway, so I'm still maybe biased, I guess, when it comes to that, so. But I digress. So, one thing I should probably also mention is that, well, apparently though, that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania has recently come to a halt, for the sake of the forms of the box office records right now, because as it seems, it stops at $476 million, so as a result, it didn't go too well for its box office earnings compared to the forms of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because as far as I'm aware, it's still doing rather well for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which as a result, it did somehow said $7,083 million, so it's almost catching up to $1 billion, but maybe in a couple of weeks time, it will eventually reach into the forms of $1 billion, potentially, along with the forms of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, of course. So speaking of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, is actually currently on to $1.307 billion so far, so it's, you know, doing rather well. In addition to that, new to the lineup, in terms of the forms of the highest grossing films of this year so far, that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has recently now been added, for the sake of the forms of, you know, highest grossing film earnings for the box office, currently. So as a result, it's actually on the 10th spot at the moment, right behind Creed 3, and, The Little Mermaid. Oh jeez, why do I been bothered about just trying to say that, but either way though, but at least hopefully that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse will potentially get a lot of progressioning for its box office earnings at this point, but let's just hope that will be the case, especially noticeable about the fact that a lot of people get hyped about the film so many times in the past, which we've already pointed out in the past few days or so, but either way though, that's saying something, so. Oh yeah, the next thing I want to mention is that ever since in yesterday, that recently that Disney Dreamlight Valley has recently received an update, which appears to be by the forms of the Remembering. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, I would have liked able to mention about the forms of the patch updates for that point, but unfortunately though, I've seemed able to lost interest with the game quite easily, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, potentially speaking, there's not much else to it, though, I must be quite frank, but either way, that's saying something, so. Anyway, and what I found was a little bit weird is that one of those devices is going to be releasing, made by Apple, of course, which there are, not only for the likes of the forms of Mac Studio, which it does kind of reminds me like a mini PC drive or something like that, but also, out of nowhere, there's also Mac Pro. And for what I've looked on the forms of the back, or potentially speaking the front portion of Mac Pro, it does kind of remind me of the forms of the cheese grater for some reason. Like, I'm not kidding, it looks kind of like a cheese grater when if you look at the front. Because aside from all that stuff though, it actually cost about $7,000 for that particular Mac Pro. I mean, Jesus Louise, no wonder why it's actually getting super expensive all this time. So, now as far as I'm aware, in terms of the forms of Mac Pro, in terms of certain features they'll have, I think potentially speaking, it actually includes M2 Ultra chip, as well as from that, there's also 32-core neural engine, which is about 31.6 trillion operations per second. In addition to that, it goes up to 7 times faster than starting configuration of internal base Mac Pro, and also it'll just go up to 3 times faster than fastest internal base Mac Pro, and also they say something like 24 core CPU, as well as up to 76 core GPU. So yeah, that seems ridiculously fast. In addition to that, there's also going to be brings us into 2 HDMI ports, as well as the forms of dial 10GP in internet, and as well as the forms of Bluetooth support 5.3 to be more specifically, and also Wi-Fi 6E. And in addition to that, they're also going to bring in ourselves within rank mount available. And in addition to that, there's also 8 Thunderbolt 4 ports. And in addition to that, there's also like up to 22 streams of 8K Pro resolution or something. And in addition to that, they also mentioned about the forms of let's just say 6 open PCLE Gen 4 slots, and also it actually supports up to 6 Pro displays, XDRs, I'm pretty sure at this point. And in addition to that, in terms of the forms of the memory, in this case they actually got about 192 gigabytes of like unfired memory or anything else like that. So yeah, I think that's as far as I can talk about the forms of Mac Pro. I mean, seriously, the way I looked at it though, it still kind of reminds me of the forms of the cheese grater, where if you look at the front, which, I know, I've already pointed things out already, but either way though, seriously, it does remind me of that, so anyways, I get this sense of feeling about the fact that there's going to be an M somewhere as soon as we're able to get rid of this alien creature right here. So potentially speaking, we can able to obtain the M right here, so that should be all good. So there's also another thing I should probably explain about this as well, that potentially speaking, I believe we've only got about roughly about let's just say 4 days to go until not only Ubisoft Forward is going to be starting, but also with the forms of Capcom Showcase as well. So I'm pretty much hyped about the forms of those presentations already, just to get ourselves some high expectations, just to see what kinds of announcements they'll bring in. But still, my only prediction for Ubisoft Forward's case, I'm hoping that we'll see some gameplay footage along with the release date of Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, the last Spark Hunter DLC, just to ensure about the fact that I can finally get back into that game after quite a few months ago, since after testing out the Tower of Doom DLC, which I still haven't got far into that particular DLC. Well, mind you, I've already done the main story campaign of the Tower of Doom, but it's just about the fact that I feel like it is pretty difficult to go back into that particular DLC, I must be honest. Mainly because of the forms of how the fact that, once again, that much like the forms of Mario Plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, sometimes my strategy does work half the time, whilst other times though, it doesn't seem to work with me half the time. So, kind of a nuisance anyway though, but that's probably just because about the fact that it's been quite a few months ago since I actually have last played, you know, Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which, because, you know, still busy playing through this at the moment, on the Switch version anyway. In addition to that, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which, either way, then I basically almost finished up the main story. So either way though, well, you don't have to show me any spoilers please, because obviously I haven't exactly got to this point yet. So, anyway, but at the very least though, about the fact that, well, we did have some good news for sure, but also, unfortunately though, we stumbled across into some obscure, unfortunate news to discuss. Well, first of all, about the fact that, unfortunately though, that do you guys even remember about the fact that obviously Sonic Origins Plus will be expected to be on its way at some point? Likely also about, like, quite a few days now. To be more specifically, we've only got about roughly 15 days left now. That, from what I've heard, that, it seems about the fact that it's not gonna able to go too well as far as this is concerned. Especially noticeable about the fact that what I've heard about the news articles about it, they did say for those interested in picking up the upcoming physical version of Sonic Origins Plus, might be disappointing to hear, but that not everything is included on the cartridge or disc, or just potentially with the Switch version to be more specifically, as far as I'm aware. Because what they mentioned is that based on boxes showing up at retailers, specifically GameStop in this case, it seems that the new content is instead offered us a download code. Oh boy, I can totally see what this is going downhill from here and there. And you'll be getting the original base experience on the Switch cartridge version, with everything Sega is included. With the Plus version, it appears that's all tied into an eShop download. I'm pretty sure that's what it's at. So, yeah, it's not looking good. Especially noticeable about the fact that I was so hyped about the forms of how the fact that I can able to actually just, well, keep my physical copy of Sonic Origins Plus, potentially. If assuming, of course, if my PlayStation 4 or my Xbox One decides to able to go completely fried. But it seems it's not completely fried though, on the other hand, because after all, they're all both in a really good condition. So, at least as far as I'm aware. So, anyway, in addition to that, there's a new Switch game that just recently has been announced for about a couple of weeks ago right now. And that's what appears to be none other than Everybody Want to Switch. God. This is not a good way to announce it, I must say. I mean, this is a pretty terrible way of existing it. Well, at the very least, it's been about 6 years ago since the original game came out, and during the forms of alongside with the forms of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, along with the Nintendo Switch itself, because obviously the original game was actually a launch title for the Nintendo Switch, alongside with, of course, not only The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but also with the forms of Super Bomberman R, and potentially speaking with other titles here and there as well. But, as far as saying goes, that's all I can really think about it. And, yeah, it seems about the fact that Everybody Want to Switch has existence, apparently. Because I've heard for a fact that they keep on bringing up a lot of rumors about it in the past year or so, since 2022. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, it's about the fact that what makes Everybody Want to Switch is interesting to say the least, is that potentially speaking, they not only bring in the Joy-Con controllers to the table, similar to the forms of in the first game, but also with the forms of some smart devices, specifically smartphones like, I don't know, Apple phones or Android phones, potentially speaking. Well, it seems interesting, but it's just about the fact that I'll get to my major gripes I have with that particular game's existence until later, because as a result, I'm pretty sure that Everybody Want to Switch might plays out exactly like the first game, except they were able to actually bring in, I would say, more players to the table, instead of like 1 to 2 players specifically. So at the very least that's something, I guess. And as far as the release date is concerned, it's actually going to be not too far ahead. So it's going to be releasing at some point at the very end of June. So specifically, June the 30th. So yeah, that's pretty crazy, gotta think about it. Now the problem with this is that not only, I guess, the game itself, is the existence of this. Why the heck does the forms of Nintendo wants to able to bring back Want to Switch? Like, I just have no idea of why that game is good existence. like, almost assume about the fact that they'll bring something new to the table for, like, oh, I don't know, a new update for the sake of the forms of Metroid Prime 4, but we still haven't got to that point yet. Especially noticeable about the fact that I was dying to see, not only for more news and updates for Metroid Prime 4, but also with more upcoming games during the holiday season, because, well, I already mentioned about this before, that it seems like the second half of the year is still pretty much bare bones for the sake of time, but seriously, I just really wish if they'll bring in something interesting during the course of the second half of the year. I mean, I don't feel like trying to go into a ranting mode right now, but either way, time to take on the next boss, which appears to be King Galaxian. So of course, just like before, we need to hop onto that particular ship contraption thingy right there, or specifically the actual spaceship or something like that, to do playing Galaga, basically. So because of that though, so to be expected, we need to shoot down a lot of those enemies to able to not only give you certain rewards, like for instance some fruit, alongside with the forms of tokens, I'm presuming so anyway, but also out of nowhere, that not only do we get ourselves some health wedges to make the actual level itself a lot more tamed, but also is that we get ourselves a power pellet, which if you obtain a power pellet, basically you can able to actually just to like upgrade your shoot pellets. So yeah, that's actually pretty dope and everything, especially noticeable about the fact that thankfully this level will be a lot more easier than the forms of how it does on the original version, at least in my opinion, especially because of all that, I would say, stingy checkpoint system as far as I'm aware. So either way, that might be saying something. So oh yeah, in addition with the forms of how the fact that everybody want to switch has been in existence, that's also out of nowhere, they obviously going to be bringing in not only one, but 4 new colors for the Joy-Con controllers. And this time around though, what appears to be body forms of pastral variations of certain colors. Like for instance, they'll bring in pastral purple on the left, pastral green on the right, and in addition to that, there's also pastral pink on the left, and finally pastral yellow on the right. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, I think with those Joy-Cons combined, I believe they'll be also going to be releasing on the 30th of June as well, to go alongside with the forms of everybody want to switch. So yeah, unfortunately though, I'm not going to be hyped about the forms of everybody want to switch, because obviously to me though, that game is unnecessary. But anyway, enough about that, so let's go ahead and take on King Galaxian again, but this time on the forms of a brand new visual style. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, everything else will be pretty much self-explanatory by then, especially noticeable that thankfully we've now actually got the checkpoint just before the fight starts. So anyway, so speaking of something related to The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom actually, I've looked upon the forms of another rating board for any other like reviews as far as this is concerned, according to the forms of the actual Nintendo UK website or something like that. They had a lot, I mean a lot, of not only 5 stars out of 5, but also with 10 out of 10s as well, which is understandable because this is without a doubt the best received Zelda games of all time. So, as a result, let's run down the list, shall we? While I was trying to able to fight against with King Galaxian, of course. So, either way though, The Guardian gives the game 5 stars out of 5, and Mirror Online gives it also 5 stars out of 5, and Empire also receives 5 stars out of 5, and Metro gives the game 10 out of 10, Nintendo Live gives it 10 out of 10, GameSpot gives the game 10 out of 10, and My Nintendo News is also receiving 10 out of 10 for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, potentially speaking. And also, as far as I'm aware, in terms of the forms of other reviews I could possibly able to search upon, there we go. There's also Evening Standard. Also receives the game 5 stars out of 5, as well as the Telegraph and Radio Times, and 10 out of 10 for the likes of not only for IGN, speak for itself, alongside with the forms of Game Reactor, God Seek, I think is what it says anyway. And finally, Gaming Bible also receives The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom a 10 out of 10. So, yeah, it's actually doing rather well for the sake of the forms of the review scores alike. Especially noticeable about the fact that, you know, as I said this before, everyone else has been hyped about the game all day long until the game finally came out in public release. So, but I digress. Now, I suppose the last thing I want to mention for the sake of the forms of today, actually, that out of nowhere, there's also going to be a brand new game is going to be on its way to the not only for Nintendo Switch, but also with other platforms as well. And that's what appears to be by the forms of Paw Patrol World, which I am not that particular demographic, so because of that though, it's just there. And as a result, the release date for that game is going to be releasing at some point on the 29th of September in this year. So because of that though, yeah, I'm not really too crazy about that, to be honest with you. But hey, at least it's there in case if you kids were really going to be into the forms of Paw Patrol as much as I do. But personally speaking though, I'm more into the forms of not only the Powerpuff Girls, but also with My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. It now includes Generation 5 if I somehow give the actual series a second chance. So that's the way I feel about it for this point, folks. But hey. And there we go. That basically pretty much takes care of the forms of not only King Galaxian, but also the entire space world itself. So because of that though, oh yeah, there's one tiny little thing I want to address, and that is about the fact that when it comes to the forms of the next film is going to be on its way by the end of June, potentially speaking, by the forms of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Apparently it did say about the fact that Indiana Jones is going to be back for one final adventure. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, gee, no wonder why it's going to say the last true adventure after the events of the fourth entry back in 2008. But either way though, it's been a very long time since actually I've watched something related to the forms of Indiana Jones stuff. So I'm still curious to check it out, but don't get my hypes about it, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, it's just about the fact that I've heard about the fact that it might not be that great though, but we shall see what happens during that some point by the end of the month, so, which I'm sure that Sonic will be able to mention more about it whenever he goes back onto Sonic Frontiers at some form or another, so. But anyway though, since we've now completed this space world, as I said this before, but also we've now able to actually open up the next two worlds, which there are obviously the Funhouse world, as well as from that, there's also the Factory world. So, yeah, potentially speaking though, as far as the final world is concerned, that'll be for later, because obviously we need to take care of the forms of the other two worlds first. So because of that though, yeah, I believe we're now on to the halfway point in terms of the forms of Pac-Man World Re-Pac so far. Although potentially speaking though about the fact that I'll explain more details about that at some form or another. So anyways though, so with that being said, we got the ending stuff at this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Pac-Man World Re-Pac, and that is that we're about to be able to start to explore through the fourth world in Pac-Man World Re-Pac, and that is the Funhouse. So I'll see you guys until next Tuesday. Later fellas.